This is part 2 of how to add and subtract integers using colored beans. It may be difficult to understand if you haven't seen part 1, so I suggest that you first go over to part 1 and then come back and watch this section. Some things you need to know about the beans. The white side of the bean means you have a positive answer. The shaded side means you have a negative answer. One positive and one negative cancel out. And to change directions, simply you're just going to flip the bean over. So when you see a negative or minus sign, you'll flip the bean over. Always assume you're moving in a positive direction until you're told to change direction. Okay, we're going to move on to some larger number examples now, and I'm going to show you some tricks for handling those. When it comes to laying out beans and a student sees larger numbers, they usually turn and say, "Miss Sheldrake, nope, forget it, I'm not laying out 35 beans, you can forget about it. I don't want to count them out, I don't want to lay them down, I just don't want to do that anymore." And so we have to start looking at different ways we can come up with the answer without laying out the beans. So let's take a look at these different examples all at the same time. We are going to follow some of the traditional steps that we have been using. We are going to circle the number and the sign in front of it, so I've done that with each of these 4 problems. Instead of laying out a whole big bunch of beans, we only actually need to lay out one to get an idea of what the sign is for each of these numbers. So in the first example, we have -35 circled. We always start on white, a positive direction, until we're told to change the direction, of which this has a -35 has that negative sign, and so we're going to change directions to black. And so we've gone ahead, we've changed direction. We don't need to lay out any more beans, and I'll explain why in a minute. We're just going to go ahead on to the next one because we just know everyone on that -35, we're going to have -35 beans, and we don't have to lay them all out. So let's go on to the 21. On the plus and -21, we know we're always going to start out in a positive direction. The plus sign will not change the direction, but the negative sign before the 21 will. So we will be flipping it over. So we will have 21 shaded beans in that row, but we don't have to put them all out. We can see right from here that we're going to have all shaded beans. There's not going to be anything crossed out. So when you have all shaded beans, you just add up all that you have, and since they're both shaded, we know the answer is going to be negative. So in this case, we'll just go ahead, leave our negative answer, and add up 35 plus 21, which gives us 56. So our answer is -56. We would have 56 shaded beans there. Moving on to the second example, again, we're going to start with a positive answer on the 34. Because 34 is positive, there's no negative or minus signs in front of it, we're going to leave that as positive. So there would be 34 positive beans, but we don't need to put them all down. We only need that one. So we have a white bean there. Moving on to the -7, we lay out a bean in the positive direction. The first minus sign that we see is going to flip the bean over to shaded. So here it's been shaded. We have a negative sign in front of the 7. That negative sign is going to flip the bean back to white. So ultimately we would have 7 white beans there. We don't need to lay them all out, because if you look, you're going to have all white beans in this pile. You're going to have 34 white beans and 7 white beans. So you know there's nothing that's going to cancel out. So you can just go ahead, you know your answer is going to be positive because it's all white beans. So just go ahead and add the 2 numbers. 34 plus 7 would be 41. So you're going to have 41 white beans there. Okay, I've gone ahead and set up the beans for the next problem. Obviously 53 would be positive, so we would have 53 white beans. The negative or minus 63 would give you 63 shaded beans. We can see that we're going to have beans crossing out because we have white beans and black beans. Looking at the two numbers, we have 53 white ones and 63 black ones. You have more shaded beans. So that means that the shaded beans are going to be the ones left over. So you know your answer is going to be negative. So we can go ahead and write that negative sign in. Okay, so now we've written the negative in. Well, how many will we have left over? Well, let's find out. Just simply subtract 53 from 63. And we would have 10 beans left over. So basically, when you do a problem like this where you have positive and negative beans, we know they're going to cancel out. So the sign of the highest number is going to be the sign of your answer, and then you simply subtract the numbers. All right, let's try another one just like that. Again, we have negative 15, so that's going to be 15 shaded beans in that row. Let's just put 1. And then in the other row, we have a plus 35. So that's going to be just 35 white beans. We know they're going to be canceling out. So the sign of our answer will be the sign of the highest number. In this case, 35 is a higher number than 15. So, and 35 is positive. So our final answer is going to be positive. We can write that down. So here I've written our positive sign. So now from here, we would know that we would have to subtract the numbers. So if we had 35 shaded beans, 15 shaded beans and 35 white beans, we're definitely going to have more white beans left over. How many more left over? Well, 35 minus 15 is 10. We'll have 10 extra white beans, so positive 10 is our answer. So now take a good look at the overall this entire page. The top two are very similar in that when the problems have the same sign, they keep the sign and add the numbers. As in negative 35 and negative 21 were both negative, so the answer is negative and the problem is added. On the bottom two, when they have two different signs, you're going to use the sign of the highest number and subtract the numbers.